Most of the church leaders we talk to have two things going for them. The first is purpose. They can tell you exactly why their church exists. The mission statement has been preached on and prayed through. There is a genuine sense of calling behind the work, and the team can feel it. The second is activity. Ministry is happening. People are busy. From the outside, and honestly from the inside too, it looks like a church that's moving. And yet, when we sit down with these same church leaders and ask these questions, what is your team specifically working toward right now? And what does progress look like? There's a pause. The answers are a little fuzzy. And if we were to ask every person on the staff that same question separately, we'd probably get 5 different answers. That gap between the calling and the calendar is what this video is all about. We work with church staff teams across the country, sometimes small congregations with a handful of paid staff, and sometimes larger churches with teams of 25 or 30, different denominations, different models, and different seasons of ministry. The pattern we're about to describe shows up in all of them, regardless of size or style, because this isn't a people problem. It's not that the leaders are failing or the staff is disengaged. It's a structure problem, and structure problems have structural solutions. By the end of this video, you'll be able to see exactly where this gap shows up in your church, and you'll understand why the most common attempts to fill it don't stick. We're not going to talk about adding more programs to your ministry or more meetings to your calendar. What we are going to do is help you see a structural problem that's hiding behind much of the frustration in ministry. And once you identify it, you can actually fix it. Let me show you a simple image we call the Big Five. This is a map of how a healthy church staff team operates, from the longest range thinking all the way down to the daily work. On the far left is purpose. This is the forever layer. Why your church exists. What you believe God has called this community to be and do. It's the foundation, and it probably doesn't change. Next is mission. This is the 1 to 3 year horizon, the direction your church is moving in this particular season of ministry. Then on the far right side of the picture are tasks. This is the daily and weekly work you and your staff are doing. The meetings, the programs, the Sunday stuff. These are the things that take up your time from day to day and week to week. And right in the middle, connecting the vision to the work, are goals and plans. Now here's what we want you to notice. Most churches do the left side reasonably well. The lead pastor champions the purpose and mission, and it really is meaningful. And the right side is all the activity. People are doing their jobs and staying busy. There's a lot of tasks every week. But the middle layer, the goals and plans that describe what is most important and what we're working on right now, that piece is often missing entirely. Many churches don't have this at all, and sometimes it's vague or fuzzy. This gap I'm describing, we call it the missing middle. When that middle is missing, the lead pastor becomes the connective tissue of the whole organization. He is the only person who actually knows how all the pieces fit together. The worship pastor might be working on one thing while the children's director is working on something else, and the outreach coordinator is doing their part. Everyone is genuinely busy, but they're not necessarily moving together. Everyone is technically on the same team, but they are not necessarily aligned or working together. That's a heavy weight for one person to carry. It's also a fragile way to lead, because the team's alignment is only as strong as one person's capacity to hold everything together. If you're tired in ministry, it very well could be because the people around you aren't helping to carry the same load. Without clear shared goals and plans, staff fill the void with their own sense of priority. They're not being irresponsible, they're just acting like human beings. When goals and plans aren't shared, everyone defaults to what they know how to do, whatever feels urgent this week, and what their particular ministry area needs right now. The result is a team full of capable people working in parallel rather than together. But working hard and moving forward are not the same. What most of these teams are missing isn't effort or commitment. What's missing is agreement, a clear shared understanding of what matters most right now. Without this, the team's energy gets spread across a dozen different priorities instead of concentrated on the few things that could actually make a huge difference. Most church leaders recognize this gap eventually, so they go looking for a solution. And what they find, almost without exception, is a shelf full of frameworks borrowed from the business world. OKRs came out of Intel and Google, huge corporations with shareholders and boards. EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, was built for small business teams who have profitability as the goal. SMART goals came out of management consulting in the 1980s. Balanced scorecards, another process adapted from the corporate environment. These aren't bad tools. The people who built them were smart, and the organizations that use them well get real results. But every one of those frameworks was designed to solve a specific problem in a specific kind of organization, and most of them make huge assumptions that don't translate to church. The first assumption is performance. A boss sets goals, employees execute, and accountability is tied to performance reviews and compensation. Your church probably doesn't work that way. The second assumption is that success is measured by quantifiable outputs, things like revenue or customer retention. But ministry success involves things that are genuinely hard to put a number on: depth of discipleship, the spiritual health of a church, or pastoral care in hard moments. A system built around KPIs misses something essential and something spiritual. Now, sometimes churches use these frameworks anyway and just throw away the parts that don't make sense. At first, that brings some good energy. Maybe there's a strategic retreat or a renewed focus on some goals. There's a meeting that gets everyone feeling good. But after a few weeks or months, the goals quietly disappear. The team goes back to the way they know. Pastors often assume this means they're not disciplined enough or that their team isn't bought in. So they try a different framework from a different leader or conference next year. And the same thing happens. We've watched this cycle repeat in church after church. And when we look at why it keeps happening, it comes back to the same thing every time. The framework doesn't fit the church. A tool built to align a company around revenue growth cannot simply be adapted for a team trying to grow a congregation. A church is a genuinely different organization with different authority structures, different accountability dynamics, different definitions of success, and different rhythms. Handing a church staff team a corporate goal framework is like handing someone a set of boat building tools and asking them to build a house. There might be some overlap, but the fit is going to be off no matter what. When a church tries a system and it doesn't stick, that almost never means the team isn't disciplined enough or the pastor isn't capable. It means the tool was designed for someone else's organization. We want to speak to something you might be thinking right now. Maybe your experience with goals in ministry has been frustrating enough that you've started to wonder whether structured goals are even appropriate for a church. Maybe it feels a little corporate, a little disconnected from how the Spirit actually moves. That's a reasonable thing to feel, especially if everything you've tried has eventually collapsed under the weight of regular ministry life. But planning should not be absent from ministry. Nehemiah didn't start building the wall without a plan. He rode around the perimeter at night, assessed what needed to happen, organized the people, and named specific sections for specific families. Paul described travel plans, named cities, worked with timelines, and adapted when circumstances changed. The Bible is an anti-goal or anti-plan. What's foreign to ministry isn't structure. What's foreign is the specific structure borrowed from a quarterly corporate planning process and handed to a staff team trying to make disciples. Your church needs goals and plans, but they need to make sense in a ministry context. So what's the way forward? If the missing middle needs to be filled, and it does, and the corporate frameworks don't fit, and they don't, then what does a goal system actually built for ministry look like? That's what we'll cover in the next video. We'll show you a specific framework, walk through the formula piece by piece, and give you examples from real churches. You'll be able to put something on paper and start using it before the week is out. Before then, I want to ask you one question. If we walked into your next staff meeting and asked every person at the table what the team is specifically working toward this quarter, not the vision, not the mission, but the concrete outcomes you're trying to reach in the next 90 days, how many different answers would we get? I'd love for you to answer that question and leave a comment here on this page. Our team will read and respond to every one of them. Leave your comment now, and stay tuned for the next video.